Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Real Packers Talk, the podcast dedicated to everything green and gold. I'm your host, Ethan Peltier, and today I just wanted to hop on for a little bit and chat some Packers. It's been a couple days since I've last posted. I've had a little bit of a sore throat, so I wanted to make sure that that was all clear before I started recording again. With that, it has been a few days since the Packers' last preseason game against the Chiefs. And I just wanted to share some thoughts. I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but I'll keep it brief. So without wasting any time, I'm just going to jump right into it. Starting with the offensive side of the ball, I've got a couple players here that I've highlighted. But before I get into that, obviously all eyes were going to be on Jordan Love going into this game. These preseason reps are so important. I cannot stress that enough. For a young quarterback who has not had a lot of actual playing time, this is really important. That being said, I was not all that impressed with Jordan Love's performance last week. He ended up going 16 for 26, throwing for 148 yards and one interception, which I'll touch on in just a little bit. So before I start bashing on him, I do want to preface it by saying the Packers played relatively few, if any, starters, whereas the Chiefs played a couple of them. I'm not a Chiefs fan, so I'm not actually sure exactly how many starters they did have, but it was pretty obvious, especially along both offensive and defensive fronts, as far as lines go. It was pretty obvious that our backups were playing their starters, at least from my opinion. Love didn't exactly have a ton of time to make decisions with the football. Oftentimes he was under pressure, having to escape the pocket just to make something happen. I do feel, though, as the game went on, he settled into the game a little bit better, made a couple nice throws over the middle of the field, and then obviously he had that one interception, which all I can say about that was it was at the end of the first half, trying to get a chunk play before halftime, maybe get some points on the board, and he threw it up in the triple coverage. So really not much you can do about that. Obviously, it's not going to look super sexy on a stat sheet, but it is what it is. Continuing on with the offense, a couple other notable performances. I thought Amari Rodgers played a great game in multiple different facets. It wasn't just the receiving game. He did go 4 for 39, 4 receptions for 39 yards. And then he had an additional 3 rushes for 17 yards, which isn't crazy. But if you watch those plays, I really like the way that they're utilizing him in this hybrid role where he'll line up in the backfield and either swing out for a pass or he can take a handoff. I think that's going to really open up the playbook, and I'm really excited to see what Matt LaFleur has in store for Amari Rodgers later this season. Another receiver that I thought had a nice performance was Samori Toure, our 7th-round pick this year, who actually did make the 53-man roster. And there's a good chance it's because of this performance, or at least this performance helped get him over the edge, so to speak. He had 6 receptions for 83 yards, and he looked very elusive. So excited to see what he can do as well this season. And lastly, I just wanted to quickly touch on Tyler Goodson's performance, which wasn't anything crazy. He had 7 rushes for 28 yards and a touchdown. But that touchdown run was pretty sweet, so wanted to highlight that. Moving on over to the defensive side of the ball, I really do not have that much to say. I don't have that many notes here with me right now. The most, I'd say, noteworthy performance was Quay Walker, and it's not even something that would pop out on the stat sheet. It was more just if you watched the game, he was everywhere, and you saw that. Quay Walker's athleticism and his ability to move from sideline to sideline, it is so important, and it is one of the reasons that he got drafted in the first round this year. I saw some good stuff. I'm really excited to see how this defense looks, especially now that we're starting to solidify that linebacker core. Another player with a solid performance was Jack Heflin, who had 4 tackles and really impressive 4th down stop later in the game. As far as special teams go, it was still sloppy. And that is something that, I'm not going to lie, is pretty concerning. Hopefully they can get some of these errors fixed before week 1. But it might be a long season for Packers fans as far as special teams go if this is going to be the status quo moving forward. Personally, I believe that field position is almost an underrated aspect of the game that almost isn't talked about enough. Maybe I'm wrong. I could just be, this could just be my own personal opinion here, but it is so vital that you start with decent field position, especially on offense, especially when you have a young offensive line, and in this case, a young quarterback at the reins. Most of the Packers' drives in this preseason game started from behind their own 20-yard line. That's not okay moving forward. But other than that, this was just yet another preseason performance, meaning that not a lot of starters played. The playbook, or the play calling, rather, was very vanilla. Not really a whole lot to analyze as far as what these teams are going to look like once the actual season starts. That being said, preseason reps are still important. Now that I'm done kind of covering this last preseason performance, I know that I did mention that I wanted to do my 53-man roster prediction. However, as I mentioned earlier, my throat was not feeling the best, and I was unable to record an episode before the 53-man roster actually came out. So there will be no predictions from me. It's already happened. I do hopefully plan on having some sort of 53-man roster reaction / analysis podcast episode coming out soon, hopefully before the first week of the season. I have been a little bit busy this week, but I did want to jump on today and just briefly share some thoughts. This is something that I've been thinking about for the last week, essentially, and I do want to be consistent about my uploading. It is, obviously, I do have a pretty packed schedule, but this is something that is important to me, and is something, as I've mentioned before, that I do want to polish and work on moving forward. That's about everything that I had for today. I just, like I said, wanted to share some brief thoughts, kind of wrap this up nicely. I do want to thank anyone who tuned in today. It means a ton to me that y'all listen. I really appreciate it. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can find me anywhere on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and Anchor. I'm currently in the works of trying to figure out how to expand the podcast availability, so hopefully I'll be able to find more platforms to put this on in the future. But that's about all I have for today. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and with that, I'll leave y'all with the Go Pack Go. Peace.